Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would offer the A10 amendment.
Secretary, report the A10 amendment.
Senator Simonson moves to amend the rest amendment to House File 4 as follows. Page 1 after line 5. Insert. This is the A10 amendment.
Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request a roll call.
Roll call vote requested. Roll call vote granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is an opportunity to really do something right on behalf of local governments across Minnesota. This particular amendment would change the appropriation to local government aid in 2018 and every year thereafter. I think all of you that have cities within your districts, regardless of the size, have heard about the need for local government aid. Many of you year after year after year. And the legislature many times over the past 15 years has stepped up and made additional appropriations to local government aid formula. And we do this because of the history of local government aid and the history of the state of Minnesota partnering with local governments. I think it's important to remember why local government aid came to be to begin with. And it was essentially a way to provide a partnership, a funding mechanism to help local governments keep local property tax as low as they possibly can. I happen to think that this is probably the most effective indirect property tax relief program that the state has. And by investing in local government aid, we're allowing our local government officials and city managers to create budgets that reflect the values of all of our constituents. This particular amendment would change the appropriation. Right now, the underlying bill has a one-time $12 million appropriation in 2018, and then the bill goes back to the 2017 levels. My amendment would simply bring us back to where we were in 2002 by appropriating an additional $45 million. And I think all of you have heard about the needs for this as the League of Minnesota Cities, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, your local mayors, city councilors have come to you and urged you to support this. This is an opportunity for us to commit to this relationship between the state of Minnesota and our local governments, and I would urge a green vote.
Senator Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. We have, again, we're working with limited resources. So we have a position in the Senate bill for LGA, and we are trying to move down that road. There's a lot of time before we are finished here. But so we're committed to those things. We have a position towards those. We understand the importance of LGA and CPA. On the other hand, this is extremely expensive, and it's just too much to bite off. This is $68 million in the out years. So again, we have to talk about priorities. Shared prosperity, jump-starting this economy, every Minnesotan, Main Street, urban core, farmers to city. That's what we have to do. If we're going to get through them, I should remind everybody again, I think I have to keep going back to that, I don't like to be doomsday, right? But I have to go back to that first in my introduction. Remember, members, this is not, there's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We have a demographic problem that's going to smack us in the face. Our last amendment just addressed that issue again. With all these people retiring, the baby boomers, the pension issues, the revenue issues. So keep piling on the dollars and try to have fun with this, but it's not going to work in 5 years. Labor force is shrinking. People are leaving the state. And we have to support the seniors. This is not the smart approach. We support LGA, we support CPA, but we want to take a responsible approach to this. And putting this back to 2002 levels is not affordable at this time. Not affordable at this time. So members, I appreciate the sentiment. We support these ideas, but this bill is too expensive and it does not serve the purpose of addressing the issues that we're going to face in the next couple of years. So I urge a no vote.
Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Friends.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, and I rise in support of the amendment. As Mayor of Faribault might know, we're talking about rural Minnesota cities, and LGA goes directly to those cities. If we're here representing rural Minnesota, I'd ask members to vote yes. First of all, number one, local government aid restrains property taxes. I think people like to have their property taxes restrained. And as you can see in the handout, the years in which we've increased local government aid, it's led to a corresponding decrease in property taxes. The Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities is asking the legislature to support an increase in LGA. It's been about 45 minutes since I got an email from a mayor in my district asking me to remember how important LGA is to the services that the cities provide. And yesterday morning at breakfast, one of the Mankato police officers came to me and said, keep in mind, LGA pays for police and fire and the services that our cities need. For Senator Chamberlain and for the question of the cost of the bill, I would like to make a comment about Section 169. I'm a small business owner. I appreciate a reduction in property taxes. Let's keep in mind what 179 and the change would do here is provide business owners a preferential tax treatment. That's a good thing if you're a business owner. But let's not kid ourselves. Not every business owner will take that and turn it into new jobs. Some business owners will simply have it increase the bottom line. For those, I would say, the use proposed by Senator Simonson and his amendment is a better budgeting process and a better inclusion in the tax bill. And for that reason, I urge people to vote yes on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, being on the tax committee, last year's bill had $20 million for local government aid, which I supported. I'm a rural legislator, support local government aid. I appreciate that the chair put a position in the bill. I think that's important as we all move forward into the conference committee. So I am confident of where we're at this beginning point is good, and so I oppose the amendment on local government aid increase.
Senator Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. One final word on this. Two things that were just brought up. One of the focus, if you go back to this bill, one of the focuses was stabilizing rural Minnesota while helping all Minnesotans. We were not trying to be preferential in this bill, members. If you look at this bill, it's for 5.4 million people and 2.1 million directly with the rate reduction. And for the good senator and my colleague to suggest that these rotten businesses are just not going to use the money to do good, well, who are you to decide? Who are you to decide? They built this state, they built this nation. We get here in the stuff they created, large parts and small parts. Remember, again, you're taking money from 179, small business. Don't say 179 anymore. Small business, farms, Main Street, the bakery, the places I stop in Aiken or in Reamer and Walker. Those are the businesses we're talking about, and they'll invest there. That's who's getting help. So the things that are helping rural Minnesota and all Minnesota in this bill, CPA a position, LGA position, ICWA that has not been done before for counties. PILT to help stabilize PILT. The CI, as I just mentioned, the commercial industrial, and the ag bond credit. All these things. And again, members, I remind you, take a look back at the property tax runs. Those numbers are all negative because that means we're going in the right direction to stabilize rural Minnesota and give them the relief they need. So members, that's all I have. Red vote, please.
Further discussion, Senator Bach.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Members, I was here in 2003 when Governor Plenty put his budget together, and one of the things that happened in 2003 when we were facing over a $4 billion deficit is cities were asked to share in the state's financial problems, and local government aid was cut significantly. And just remember, local government aid is the way that the state partners with the delivery of services to communities that have low tax capacity. Because, you know, a fire truck in Senator Kent's district in Woodbury costs the same as a fire truck in some rural district that doesn't have the same kind of tax capacity to be able to afford those basic necessities of providing fire and public safety. So that's what local government aid is really about, is the state being a partner with our local communities and providing essential services. And you know, we have been trying for years, and to some extent successful, in trying to get that LGA that was cut back in the 2003 session back to the 2002 level. If we can't get it back to the 2002 level when we have a $900 million tax bill, $900 million of spending, if we can't get a lousy $21 million to help our communities, I don't know when we're ever going to get this problem fixed and when the state is going to renew that commitment to help provide services to communities that have low tax capacity. Senator Chamberlain, I appreciate the fact that you're inching forward, trying to help, but I think in the context of a $900 million bill, an extra $21 million to help our communities, many of them, most of the money goes rural in this program. If there ever was a time we could afford it on this floor, it's today. I urge a green vote.
Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Chamberlain.
Quick clarification. The numbers I have. Thank you, Senator Bach and members. Mr. President, just clarification. The number I have is that's about $34 million for the first year here, and then $68 million in the tails. Just for clarification, it's a little more than 21. We can go down a little bit lower, but it's all scalable. But that's where this bill is at. Thank you.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a good amendment. I appreciate the increased local government aid. It's necessary and it is long overdue. However, members, I'm not going to vote for this amendment to the amendment today. I am hopeful that as going forward, as this bill gets into conference committee, we will indeed see an increase in local government aid. That's what we were expecting. That's what we anticipate will happen.
Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll. Secretary will close the roll. With all those voting that require or that are asking to vote, the vote fails 33-31. 31 ayes and 33 nays. The amendment fails.